everybody with 2 by 2 is learning algorithms and grinding, and they all want to compare themselves to somebody else, right? How long did you take to learn this alg set? How many solves do you do a day? Blah, blah, blah. Um, so, what is your mindset on using somebody else's alg speed or amount of training as a benchmark for yourself?
I think that's a very good question. I think it's a double-edged sword because having a benchmark when you are unable to maybe intuitively set a goal, it can be very helpful because you can have somebody else be like the target for you. You're like, oh, my friend who is like similar speed as me in 2 by 2 is learning this many algorithms this quickly. Well, let me try to do the same. So in that sense, it can help. But I also think it has its downside because I'm sure you probably heard the expression comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might be doing amazing, you might be doing so great versus, 99% of everyone. And then you compare yourself with the 1% that's better. And some people can get, discouraged by that rather easily. It's something that, I face myself at times, but also in coaching people, I've seen sometimes, and it's very unfortunate because these people have so much talent, and they compare themselves with somebody else, and they get discouraged. But overall, I think this was specifically about algorithm learning, right?
Yeah, especially alg learning, but also just the amount of practice you do.
um, yeah, I think for algorithm learning specifically, it's very up to you as a person. Some people really like the grind, and they'll just love just sitting down for hours and learning algorithms. And others just love doing a lot of solves and just picking up algorithms along the way. Um, I think the best way to go about this is to try different styles. You can compare yourself to somebody else, see how that goes. And if you realize that maybe it's too fast paced or too slow paced, you can adjust it a little bit and
Right, right.
see how it goes after that adjustment.
Okay, cool. So, having prefaced with that, do you remember how long it took you to learn EG and then, whatever additional TCLL, LS, alg sets you learned after that?
Um, Well, it's been a while.
Yeah.
At least for EG and TCL. EG is definitely over 10 years ago. TCL is close to that. I was definitely on the slower side, and I was at the start. I was very lazy with learning algorithms because I used to rely a lot on CPS. So I was like, it's okay. I don't need to learn the alg. I'll just turn a little bit faster, and that'll be fine. Um, but I think EG, I definitely learned it over like three different periods, like CLL, EG1, EG2. It was very separate from one another, and each of those probably took at least a month. Um, TCLL, I was learning it pretty well, but then I was just forgetting the bad cases, and that also took a while. And then LS, I could actually tell you more or less how long that took
Okay.
because that's more recent. I started learning just before Worlds 2023 in Korea. I think I started like um 2 months before that. And by the time Worlds came around, I'd learned the first three sets, which are arguably the most useful. And then it took me like 8 or 9 more months after that to really know it. Um because I learned it, but then you confuse cases and you forget cases. So yeah, it took me probably a bit over maybe around a year to really learn LS.
Okay. About a year. And then you also know ZB, right? Somebody told me that you know ZB for 3 by 3.
Yes, I do.
Okay. How long did that take you? What was the cadence for learning that?
Uh, well, I knew a decent amount of ZBL already, just throughout the years, random cases that I learned, or actually periods of time where I learned like T, U, and L.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then after, I want to say, let me think. After Euros, yes, I remember. So after Euros 2024, I was like, okay, let's learn ZB. And then I spent like half a year learning ZB. And then I started being a little bit more restricted in my time, and then I realized, wait, world is around the corner. Maybe I should practice some two by two because I had practiced no two by two at all. And so that basically in 6 months' time, I'd then finished the rest of ZB. But then by the time Worlds came around and I just practiced two by two, I'd forgotten a lot of it. And then in the past 6 months, I've relearned at least all of ZBLL, and then ZBLS. I just improvise a lot of the
Yeah.
time, so it's not
Okay.
great.
So you're not super locked in on ZBLS. What's your sense for you on whether CFOP or ZB is going to be better long term?
Uh,
Like,
I think.
given your life and time, not just like yes, so I have 8 hours a day.
Oh, you mean for myself?
Yeah, for you.
Oh, okay. Well, look, the thing is, I don't have that much time to practice nowadays, anyways. So I think realistically, my answer should be CFOP because it's just super hard to maintain such a difficult AUX set if you don't practice, you know, consistently. So I mean, being realistic, I'd say CFOP, but I would really like to be able to say ZBL because I just think it's super cool. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I don't know. It just looks so much cooler, and it's just I don't know if I'm a boomer for using the word swag here, but like that's just the vibe I get from
I don't think that's a
ZBL and
boomer word.
just
I don't think
ZB.
that's a boomer word. It's just not the absolute Gen Alpha word. You
My
keep
bad.
saying I have less practice time, right? What did your practice look like when you had more time?
Wow. I mean, it really depended per period. I mean, especially with two by two, it used to be very crazy where I would have periods of time where I would just sit for 2 hours a day and just learn algorithms. And I would do that for like a month every day. And then I would have a period of time where unfortunately I would have less time to practice. And then those algs never really got time to really learn them. Like there have been algs that I've learned multiple times and then forgotten them sort of.
Hmm.
Um, but usually it's just a lot of solves, just a lot of timed solves with inspection, without inspection, non-timed solves. Usually with like listening to music or like some series. Usually it's pretty chill. And then from time to time, I would have that those like super locked in periods where I would just learn a lot of algorithms.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 hours of algorithms. I assume you're solving as well while you're on an alg set.
Sorry.
I assume you're also solving while you're grinding an alg set.
Yes, but not that much.
Okay. So like 2 to 4 hours a day or so for you was like peak.
Yeah, yeah. That's like usually in times where I had like holidays.
Okay.
That's something that I've not been able to maintain during like usual uni or work periods because I
Hmm.
was just too busy with other things.
Yeah. Where are you at in life right now as far as time? What are you doing? Are you in school? Are you working? Are you traveling the world?
So right now I'm working. I started my first full-time job in September. The year before that I was mostly, you know, doing coaching and setting up the course. And before that I was studying. So right now is, as they say, when life really starts. Pursuing something related to my studies. And it's been busy and unfortunately a little bit less time for cubing, but I
Sure.
mean, that's okay. Part of life.
Yeah. Okay. So you're working a full time job, which means you're limited to like, weekend, evening hours outside of fitness and adult life and all that. So,
Exactly.
okay. Got it.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay. So cubing's kind of like hobby back burner at this point. Like we're probably not seeing you like be the one to push the 00% like all the way. That's going to be somebody else working on that stuff.
No, no. And I think, I mean, I think it's good for me to be like very realistic here that there's also people that are probably way more qualified right now with the OO and progressing two by two. Like some of the things this new wave of two by two solvers is doing is mind blowing, and um, I'm just enjoying some of these young kids uh, pushing the limits. It's It's really
Okay,
inspiring to see what
well,
they're doing.
all right, pretend I know very little to nothing about 2 by 2. Like I hate learning algorithms. I learn really, really slowly. I've discovered this over time. Like I was like, I should learn ZB. Turns out I learn alg slow. I should learn 2 by 2.
Yeah,
Turns out even after a week of staring at like, 12 algs, I still don't have them drilled in. So I don't think algorithm based events are for me. But
fair
like,
enough.
so I've never learned 2 by 2 myself is the reason I said that. So you're gonna have to explain this question to me, not knowing much. But that'll probably be good for the audience as well. How has the meta of 2 by 2 changed over the years? What methods popped up at what times? Um,
Ah,
because when I was a kid, all I remember was Chris Olson talking about learning EG. And now there's like LS is like assumed that you know LS. And then there's like all these
yeah,
extra alg sets. And then people talk about Sujin being super creative. And I'm like, what do you mean creative?
yeah.
Like to my tiny brain, I don't even know what that means.
Okay. I really, really like this question. I really like this question, and I think it's a question that's has a lot of potential for me to ramble on for like way too long. So
Sir, we have
please,
we have we
if
have an out we have an hour or more, so ramble as much as you
yeah,
want.
okay, perfect. Um, so um, the meta has changed quite a bit. However, it has always been mainly two camps, which is TPS based and efficiency based. And obviously there's always like a hybrid type of cuber that's somewhere in between, but usually it's been those two camps. And as new methods have been, let's say, discovered or developed, um, you know, the two camps stay the same, they just get elevated. And while the TPS camp still stays a TPS camp, they cannot stay at TPS camp just with EG. They'll have to learn some other algorithms as well. Um, and now the efficiency camp is not maxed out at TCLL. They're maxed out at Twisty EG1 and EGLS and CBL. And some people just know OO solutions for specific scrambles, which is just insane. So this is the foundation that has always been there. Um, so back in the day, it was just EG. EG2 was mostly anti-CLL. Algorithms were not great. Um, And, slowly but surely people realize, hey, learning more algs just gives you more room for more luck. Um, but I felt like there was always maybe a little bit of friction to learn just a whole lot of algorithms. When TCLL was, let's say, brought up as an idea, I felt like still a lot of people were sort of hesitant to learn it, even the top people, like at the time, like Rami Shabahi, Lucas Eder, and those, I don't think they necessarily even bothered to learn
Yeah.
TCO. Um, but I think both camps evolved very, very slowly, where the people in the camp that were efficiency based just slowly started learning these new algorithm sets, more alternative algorithms. This used to be people like Martin Ekdahl, Will Callan was the first to really push this, where he knew like a lot of algorithms and started generating LS algorithms, and then it became Zane and Sujin, etc. And then you always had the people in the camp that were, let's say, a couple steps behind in learning these algorithms, and they were always able to rely a little bit more on TPS. I would consider myself part of that camp for a long period of my 2 by 2 career, where I was not the first or the second or the third person to learn a new alg set. Um, and it seems that these two camps have always found some type of balance. Like even now, we see Sujin and Zane. I'm gonna reference these two guys a lot of times this call, probably because they're just insane. Where they know so many algorithms and they're so good, and then you still see like Yiheng when he's not doing funny timer starts, he can still sometimes be as fast as them, even though he knows so much fewer algs, which
Hmm.
is insane. So this dynamic still exists.
Okay, so I need to
Um,
pause you here for a second. Um, you are assuming a lot about my knowledge of 2 by 2. How many algs does Yihang know? And how many algs does Sujin or Zane know?
so Yiheng, from what we know, he's still a little bit of a mystery, but from what we know, he just knows EG and then probably like a decent amount of alternative algorithms for EG. So that's, let's say, 130 cases. It's difficult to say how many alternative algorithms, but I mean, however many it may be, it's still not that big of a number of algorithms. Okay, so let's cap it at 400. Just LS is 500 algorithms, and Sujin and Zane know LS, and they know alternative algorithms for LS, and they know TCLL, which is 86 cases, and then they know like full twisty EG, which is another 500 cases, and multiple sets of EG1 LS, where each EG1 LS set is another 500 algorithms almost.
Wait,
Um,
okay. What is the difference between twisty EG and EG1 LS? Like, I understand that the EG method is solve a face and then solve the cube. TCLL is solve a
yeah,
layer but misoriented corner within that layer, then solve the cube.
correct.
LS is solve three pieces in a layer, right? Um,
Correct.
so what is twisty EG and what is EG LS?
So, TCLL is the twisty EG set for CLL, where you have the solved layer and then one
Mm-hmm.
corner twisted. Uh,
And that's just the EG1
LS,
cases, or EG2 has that as well?
so it also exists for EG2. Basically, what you can imagine is just set up any face on a 2x2. It
Mhm.
does not need to be a layer, and then just twist a corner
Mhm.
and then solve the cube from there. That's twisty
Okay.
EG.
Okay. Cool.
So, um, the same idea exists for EGLS, where rather than having a V that is with three corners that are permuted with respect to each other, now they can just be whatever three corners, and
Right.
then you solve the cube in one algorithm from there. So each of these,
How much better is that versus doing like if you have a corner in the top layer, you're always 4 moves away from solving an EG case. So how much efficiency does it save, and how much better are the finger tricks knowing that you can drill them versus like intuiting your way into like canceling into the algorithm?
that's a very good question. I'll actually give a perspective that I think not many people think of, which is that uh, knowing this many algorithms has different advantages as well, which is um, yes, indeed, a lot of times you can just insert the corner and cancel into an algorithm, or maybe not cancel into an algorithm, but still reduce the case to like a very easy EG1, for instance. However, you still have to check like multiple inserts to see which case is the best. If you just know the EG1LS or the twisty EG or whatever the case may be, you instantly know what the best way is to solve it. And maybe the way to solve it is super easy. Well, then you get lucky because you get a pretty easy scramble, right? But if it's bad, then you already know, okay, regardless of how I twist and turn this case I get here, it's not going to be a good solution. So I should look
Hmm.
elsewhere rather than spending more inspection time to, let's say, check different type of one looks, only to realize after all of that that none of them is good. Does that make sense?
Somewhat, yes. Um.
Um, Maybe to put it in a different way, if you set up like an LS case on a 2x2, so 3/4 of a layer done, you have a corner in the top layer. You can insert that corner in like 4 or 5 different ways. And you don't want to be looking every single scramble, every single time,
Hmm.
which one of those 4 or 5 ways is the best
Hmm.
to put
Yep.
the corner in to reduce it to a CLL. So if you just learn the LS, you instantly know what the best
Mm.
solution is, and you save inspection time, which you can then also use to look for different
I
type of
see.
solutions.
Okay, so like the benefit of LS is that it shortens the amount of moves you have to look into inspection because you have pre-memorized the optimal path from a certain corner position. So instead of having to
Yes.
like go run through like 5 triggers in your head and which CLL do I select based out of this pool. Okay, cool. So how
That's
far
another advantage. Another advantage of it. Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm interpreting everything back to like the algs I understand. Um, so how far is someone like Sujin or Zane from being like I guess this is where the objectively optimal conversation comes in. Can you explain what the idea of OO is first?
Yes. So the concept of objectively optimal is, well, it's a concept. It's not a method, which some people have confused it with. The idea is not that people go out and learn all OO solutions, but basically, on 2 by 2 there's about 156,000 unique states, um, excluding symmetries. And the idea of OO is that while on the one hand you have move optimal solutions, the move optimal solution is not always the speed optimal solution. So you might have a solution that is a couple moves longer, but it's just faster to execute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is something that is very difficult to narrow down with just computer brute force because a computer cannot necessarily, easily tell if a scramble or a solution is easy to execute. It requires, some specialist knowledge, like somebody that does 2 by 2 a lot to be able to say, yeah, this is easier to execute than something else. So what OO is, it's the goal of OO is to find the best speed optimal solution for every single scramble and to basically compile those all in one place. And yeah, OO, the abbreviation is objectively optimal. So we try to find the objectively optimal, speed optimal solution for every single 2 by 2 state.
Right. So if we're applying that idea to what a human would feasibly do in competition, what's like the upper bound of number of algorithms that a human should be able to learn? Because if OO is 156,000 unique states, and you said that excludes symmetries, does that also take into account color neutrality? So is that mirrors and color neutrality, or is that just color neutrality?
It's not mirrors, it is color neutrality, I should
Okay,
say. So if you have a T perm on one side or a T perm on a different side, those are considered the same thing.
right. Okay.
But
So if there's
mirrors are, yeah.
156,000 unique states, um, when you adjust by, well, I guess a lot of those are reduced from like if it's like a tree as you get towards solved. A lot of the outermost branches of the tree are like 1 or 2 moves away from reducing into a simpler one. And humans memorize algorithms in cases that look similar so that their brain can like group them and eliminate them. So what is the upper bound of algorithms that a human reasonably should learn?
Wow. Um, See, this is a difficult question because, and this sort of ties into the topic we discussed before of the TPS camp versus the
Hmm.
the efficiency camp, where sometimes doing something that's more simple can just be faster.
Right.
Maybe sometimes you're like, just not overthink it. Let's just do something that's easier. While if you know super many algorithms, it can be very tempting to uh just look for super complicated stuff and you just make it more difficult than
Hmm.
necessary. So I don't think any human will ever get to the point of, really getting close to OO. Um I think it's so this is super difficult. Um
Well, and okay, I'll give you time to think, process this for a
uh,
second, because I'm coming at this from the angle of an outsider
mm,
who hasn't
yeah.
even like buckled down and learned CLL, right? But in my head, I look at 2 by 2 and I go, in an event like 3 by 3, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people thought that ZBLL was human and practical, like just ZBLL. And now it is kind of assumed that full ZB is like the standard for like retaining algorithms. And we're not even
Yeah,
talking about retaining it to the level of someone like Gang, who retains it to the degree of specificity that he can do two-side recognition for his last layer algorithms. Um,
yeah,
so like our bar for what is theoretically human possible has raised tremendously for 3x3. And now we're at the point where like Dylan Miller and Caden Lee and I will have a conversation, like essentially assuming that somebody will figure out how to predict ZBLL from ZBLS, which like the degree of faith we have in somebody learning a really advanced method is way higher for 3x3. And so I look at 2 by
yeah,
2 with the same eyes. Like you were talking about how a few years ago it was considered impractical to learn LS, and now it's assumed. So how far does
yeah,
that bar move before like does the question make more sense now?
yeah, yeah. I think it's difficult to say because one thing that's a little bit different is with ZBLS and ZBLL. If you do like an average of 1,000 in a day, you're probably going to hit a very good amount of 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 cases that you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you're not going to hit almost 500 ZBLLs or all 300 ZBLS cases, but you're probably going to hit a good amount. If I do an average of 1,000, I'm definitely not hitting all the 2x2 algorithms I know. So it's a maintenance thing. It's a maintenance thing where um, you need to be able to learn a lot of algorithms, but then also spend enough time to make sure that you keep knowing those algorithms and also not freak out when you see a case that you've just learned or that you've never done before and be like, okay, make sure to execute this right. Because if you just know EG, for instance, you've done the same cases a billion times and you know that you're going to execute it flawlessly. Um, I think the point we're going to reach, which is already sort of what's happening, is people are not going to learn full algorithm sets anymore. They're going to learn the cases that are good. They're not going to learn all 500 EG2 LS algorithms if they know that half of them are not good enough to use in solves. Um, I know Zane has been doing this for forever. It's a very efficient way of going about learning algorithms because you have to maintain less,
Mm-hmm.
um, less irrelevant stuff, to put it that way. But to really put a number on how many algorithms you should know what the upper bound or the lower bound is to really be good, it's very difficult to say. But if I had to put a number on it, I think now to compete for the top, I think 2,000 is a good number to put on there.
Okay, so you've got EG, you've got TCLL, LS, and then you've got the alternate EG cases, and then you've got all the twisted variations of EG and the LS variations of EG. And you're saying
Exactly.
that it makes more sense to have kind of a library of 1,500 to 2,000 algorithms that you have rehearsed, you maintain, and you know if I get this algorithm, I know the finger tricks, I know the solution, AUF if necessary. Like that's locked into your brain. And it would be better past that point to allocate your mental resources toward maintaining that library and an inspection, figuring out how to force into one of those cases versus having less confident turning on a wider base of algorithms because you can kind of like choose which one you get to through inspection.
Yes. Yes. I think you worded that very well. I think that's exactly what is something that needs to be put priority in over mindlessly learning
Okay.
just a lot of algorithms, which is it's a mistake I've made myself as well, where I just learn a lot of algorithms and then I look at a cube and I just get overwhelmed by everything that I see. And then when I get overwhelmed
Yeah.
and see so much, I end up not really seeing anything because I sort of look at stuff half like how should I say it? Like I look at something, but I don't really look at it. Like I just notice it, so to say. And I notice a lot of things, and then I notice another thing and another thing, and then I end up not really one looking anything. Um, so yeah, I think there's something to say for that. But also one thing that is sort of related to this, in my opinion, is if you know so many algorithms, but you're only able to one look types of solutions in the 15 seconds, you're really not taking advantage of all the algorithms you know
Right.
because you're still
Right.
just gambling between two different solutions. If you know less algs but get to see four different solutions in inspection, or if you know a lot of algs and only get to see two solutions in inspection, then being able to choose amongst four solutions is probably going to give you a better probability of getting
Yeah.
a fast solve than the two.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a lot about algorithms. Obviously, though, you have to turn quickly, and there's a few components of this. Um, so ah, I'll leave it up to you how much you want to talk about it. But timer stops, starts are like a huge component of like practically what a solve looks like for 2x2. At what point did timer stops even become like something people intentionally thought about? Because like to me, it's like okay, in a 1 second event, you have to think about how you start the timer and the motion of going from the timer to the cube. Do you remember though, like when people first really started thinking about it, changing algorithms for it? Was this always part of 2x2?
I think it's something that's a lot more recent where people have like deliberately been doing different things to improve their timer starts, especially. I know Zane he's very good at timer starts. Um, like back when the whole sliding thing first came around, there was like in-depth analysis of top cubers' of their timer starts. And Zane was consistently like a little bit faster than everyone else without doing any funny stuff. Um, so yeah, I don't think there was a wave of people necessarily like deliberately trying to improve their timer starts. Um, I think there's a couple things you can do to improve it. Uh, but it doesn't seem to be like a big like it doesn't seem to be a thing that people are very preoccupied by, to be completely honest.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
I
Cool.
guess it's something that sort of improves gradually.
Yeah. So it's not a huge thing that people are like intentionally thinking about. So do you think we need four pad like in 2x2 at least, or do you think that the whole sliding incidents with Yihang are kind of one-offs? I have a pretty specific opinion about everything that's happened. You don't have to jump into it if you don't want to, but I'm
Oh,
curious. I have to
I don't
ask.
I don't mind jumping into it. I think we should switch to four pad on everything.
Yeah, same.
Um, I think we should switch to four pad on everything because sliding can just not be prevented. Like, if I don't film my solves and I have a judge that just maybe not really paying attention, I can just do it and nobody will know.
Yep.
And it's like an inherent fault that is easily like can be easily taken advantage of. Um, and that's not nice. And I think it messes a bit with the integrity of results, or I mean, it can mess with the integrity of results. And yeah, I think I've been on the four pad train since the second it got mentioned. I don't really care about. I don't think we need a database reset. I think we'll be fine. Um, and yeah, that's my take, and I'm pretty firm, as I
Yeah.
guess you are as well.
Yeah, I said this when I did my podcast with Phil Yu, but I was like, we need a four pad reset. I like maybe like you're saying, maybe not a database reset except for 2x2 Purist Cube. But even then, maybe you don't because I've obviously never held a record there. You don't think we do?
I don't think we do. I think it's just a matter of getting used to it.
Mm, okay. I
I
mean,
mean, I think it. Yeah, go ahead.
Watching Monkey League, the times don't seem to have changed. Like they seem to be getting
I know.
equivalent 3x3 times, and these kids are pumping out fours consistently on four pad, and it doesn't look like it's affecting
Yeah.
them.
I mean, in the first couple of episodes, you probably did notice a couple of them struggling a bit with timer stops
Sure.
specifically,
Yeah.
but
Mostly
you
Yihang.
can just get used to it. Yeah, I think Schwanyi had a couple of ones as well
Shwani did
where
too.
he was
Yeah.
struggling. Um, but you just get used to it. Like it's different. And of course, if you see a post on Facebook or whatever it is about four pad, and you're like, okay, let me try this out. Like the first 50 solves are not going to go good. if you've been used to two pad for 10 years. You know, it's a habit that you would need to really break, but it will really get a lot more integrity. It will assure integrity a lot more in
Mhm.
official solves, in my opinion.
Yeah. Will that happen?
Um, so I don't have any insider info or anything like that, but
Yeah, I
my
just mean,
gut
like,
feeling says
practically.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I think it won't happen, unfortunately. I'm not sure how I feel about the recent change in regulations about multiple types of timers being allowed. I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
Mm-mm.
Um, I'm not sure if it's from this year or from next year. They're gonna allow different. It's not gonna. It's not gonna be exclusive to speed stacks to be used at competitions. Um, so I'm not sure how that will affect the four pad situation because only speed stacks has a patent to the four pad
Yeah.
uh
I mean,
type of
that makes
timer.
sense to me, like, the competitive integrity of, like, a sport shouldn't be held to a piece of equipment that one company can make, and yet, in an ideal world, we just switch everyone to 4-pad. So, I don't know.
Yes,
It's tough.
it's tough. The other solution is to just record top people solves all the time, have it like make it mandatory somehow.
Yeah,
But I doubt that will happen. So
yeah. Okay. So, ideally, we switch to 4-pad. It's an annoying situation right now with mixed up stuff. Okay.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about turning speed. How much of TPS is genetic versus how much of it is something that people learn or push themselves into based on the algorithms they choose?
Hmm. I think genetics is like genetics will cap you. Like I think you can get a decent way regardless of genetics, but at some point, you know, there's a limit to it. I think age plays a role. I think just especially what I think probably has the biggest effect on this is the habits you have in like the first couple of years of cubing, and especially the first couple of months. If you build some bad habits, those will like really stick. Um, and then, I mean, disregarding that, I think if you practice a lot and have periods of time where you try to push your TPS to a speed where you lock up a lot, and then other periods of time where you try to really get a very consistent turning speed without any lockups like that, um those two things in terms of like trying to actively apply them, I think that can really help in improving your TPS. So finding out what TPS you're comfortable at right now and then slowly but surely like pushing the limits a little bit, um getting comfortable with your algorithms, knowing the right finger tricks.
Hmm. Hmm.
um and I mean, let's not forget the elephant in the room, which is just to have hardware that fits your turning style.
Yeah. Okay. Um, are there, this might be a dumb question, but like 2 by 2 seems like you need to optimize everything at the highest level. Are there people who like loosen their cubes and intentionally don't turn all the way? They rely on corner cutting so that they physically have to move the cube a shorter distance, or is that not something that people think about?
Oh, I don't think that's something that happens. What I do think happens is, um, especially the kids, like the younger kids, like Yihang, they have their cubes super loose because their fingers. I mean, fingers are not like super strong muscles, but obviously the hand of an adult is going to be stronger than that of a kid.
Yeah.
So I think they just loosen their cubes a lot so that one motion like this is going to be equivalent, like an equivalent amount of strength on a super loose cube for Yihang compared to like a super slow cube for myself. Um, so I think that's something that's done, but I don't think anyone relies on corner cutting necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So w- right now, the clear front runners are Sujin and Zane, right? and you're saying that they're the highest level because of algorithm knowledge. But I hear people talk about Sujin being super creative and Zane being super creative. What does that mean in an event that requires you to learn 2,000 algorithms at the highest level?
Um, yeah. Um, I love this question. I really love this question because I can only say positive things about the both of them. Um, so being creative basically means trying to think outside the box and doing, very unorthodox things. Um, One thing that's, for example, very common nowadays is, or let's say it's something that's being popularized a bit more, is doing algorithms from a different angle than the usual angle. So um, let me see if I can think of an example. Like doing a CLL algorithm, but where you usually would have the layer on the bottom, you would hold the layer in the back and do the same moves, but let's say from a slightly different angle, because that way the execution just flows nicer. These people are not learning like different algorithms to do it from that angle. They just intuitively translate, so to say, the the algorithm to do it from a different angle,
Mm-hmm.
and that is something that's super creative. Um,
Hmm.
or some interesting applications of LS or EGLS on scrambles where maybe finding the reduction to an LS or an EGLS is not that straightforward. Um, and I guess just knowing a bunch of different algorithms is just super cool and creative. So yeah, it's a bunch of stuff that these specifically these two people that you mentioned can do that nobody else can right now.
Hmm. Is there anybody else who's up and coming who looks like they could approach that skill level? Like they're learning that sort of solving style?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say right now for me, this is no disrespect to anyone else, but for me, Sujin right now is the best in the world, and Zayn is like just behind that in my opinion, but also like super, super, super good. And then you have some people around the world that are learning a lot of algorithms, like Roman Rudakov from Australia. He's learning a lot of algorithms recently, and he's super good. He's a current oceanic record holder.
Mm-hmm.
You have Emanuel Schellin from Sweden. He also knows a lot of algorithms, and he's a kid with a lot of potential, who is yet to really show his full potential in competition. Um, Obviously Theodor is super good. Um, he's not he has a lot of potential, but he's just not learning the algs. Like as soon as he learns algs, everyone is in trouble.
Yeah.
Um,
Theodore seems like he just wins because he's so clutch. Like 2x2 average and the world record single are both, and his 3x3 average are all just
uh,
like
uh,
the kid just shines.
I would really like to share a Theodor story on here, which is unrelated to your question, but
Please.
I don't think I've said this publicly before. So, um, I met Theodor for the first time in Euros 2024, and just to paint the scene here, I was two-time defending champion going into that competition. I'd gotten the first sub one average the week before at the warm-up competition, and the competition was in Spain, where I had been living for a year. So it was pretty much like a home game for me, like the European Championship. Saying that I was nervous was an understatement. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I remember the day before round one, I finally got to meet Theodor, and I met his brother. So Theodor did not speak English at the time, and his brother Stefan, who is a good friend of mine now. We were speaking about Theodor, and I just asked him, "Hey, is Theodor like nervous for the round for the 2x2 finals?" And he did exactly this. I just remember asking this to him, and he just does this. Hmm. I don't know. I just think he's here to have fun.
Hmm.
And in that moment, I knew I was like doomed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew like that evening I went to the hotel early. I spoke with some friends like I had to get things off my chest for 2 hours because I was really feeling the pressure anyways. And then like my main rival, which is an 8-year-old kid, it's just there to have fun and then he crushed all of us in the end. Um and it's a very funny moment because uh it just goes to show how special this kid is and yeah, it was very cool to see him win in the end.
Yeah. It is definitely approaching this point with cubing where, as so many people are getting into it, it is no longer something that you can work your way to the top in. You do have to have some level of just inherent X factor. Whether, like you said, there's just a mindset about, I'm here to have fun, and you have like the just win factor. Theodore has the just win factor. Max Park had the just win factor when he was in his like peak. Um, and then there's people like Yihang or Zhang or Ruihang who just have unbelievable natural levels of turning speed that they're coming into. It's so
Yeah.
interesting to me that Yihang is as good as he is at 2x2, and you're saying he really does not know that many algorithms. He just does it really fast. Um,
Yes.
hmm,
Yes. I mean, it is what it is. Both Yihang and Taylor, if they just decide to learn more algs, we're all doomed. But part of the beauty in their solving is, I mean, Taylor less so because Taylor actually knows some more advanced stuff. But still, like the simplicity in what they do is just insane that they are able to find these solutions that are like just a whole lot of moves to like an easy CLL, which I wouldn't see because I wouldn't consider doing that many moves to a CLL, for example.
mm-hmm.
And then just flawless turning and insane. Like it blows my mind.
Yeah. So listening to you talk is giving me hope for 3x3, because something that Phil and I have talked about is, will 3x3 regress to the point where everybody's doing the same thing? Will it look like computers are doing it? But you're talking about with 2x2, the top solvers have style differences. And 2x2 is so much simpler in terms of the possible things you can do over the course of a solve, that for sure will have like human expression in 3x3, styles and solution paths and all that sort of thing. Um, How would you compare 2x2 and 3x3 actually? Because you were at a fairly high level in both. What was your peak rank for 3x3 again? You were like top 5 at one point, right? At least for single?
I Yeah, I was fourth for single, and I think at my peak I was 20th for average.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
so top player in 3x3 at one point as well.
yeah. Wow. How would I compare the two events? I mean, 3x3 is becoming a bit more similar. It started to look more like 2x2. A lot more is dependent on algorithm learning and inspection. Um, you see Schwarny one looking three pairs in inspection most of the time, probably. Back in my day when I was top player, most top people would just look at one and then would just do a CFOP solution. So I think they're starting to look more alike, and I think that's also what's going to happen. I think ZB is going to take over, so the algorithm aspect is going to be more widespread. I think that's going to be the meta, and I mean, if we look at the world rankings, that is what seems to be happening. And a lot more is going to be dependent on inspection to the point where I believe that we're going to have two look solves rather soon take over. I think Xuanyi is probably not far from uh, looking all the way into ZBLS in his inspection. And then
It already happens,
it's going to,
inconsistently. He does that already.
yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be a consistent thing at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's that's my suspicion. I mean, that's where the bar is. I mean, you have to realize this kid is super good, and we might think, what is there left to improve? He's only 8. or 9 or however old he is. I couldn't even solve a cube when I was 8 or 9. So let's see what the next 5 years has to bring for him
Yeah.
and all the
Yep.
other kids that are coming from China. Um, so the two events are gonna converge, and there's gonna be a lot more weight on inspection. Um, I think one thing that's going to be a bit different is 2x2 still allows for a lot of room to look for different types of solutions. 3x3, to go that deep into inspection within a second or two, you need to decide what your starting point is. So I think that's something that's going to be different. Um, um, and I mean, TPS, consistent TPS is going to also just improve in importance in
Yeah.
3x3.
Yeah. In terms of the amount of hours you have to practice, do you think 3x3 or 2x2 requires a greater investment to get to the top 100?
3x3 without a doubt.
Hmm.
No doubt.
Okay. Have you put more hours
Um,
in on 2x2 than 3x3? Just to be clear.
with without a doubt, I've put more hours into 2x2.
Okay. By how
Like
much?
zero doubt. Um, I like to say at least. I think I've put at least twice as many hours in 2x2 than 3x3.
And your world rank is
It's hard
still
to
100
quantify.
places different. Double the effort to advance 100th on 3 by like 115 on 3x3 versus like top 5 on 2x2.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, yeah, 2x2. I mean, it's been consistent. It's been consistent over the years where I've been practicing to stay in the top since like 2015.
Hmm.
So a lot of the practice has just been to maintain that ranking and keep on breaking records. So yeah, um, 3x3 is just so hard nowadays. So many different things, small things to work on. I just can't keep up,
Yeah, I feel the
basically.
same. And I'm like, sub 10. I'm not anywhere close to the top level. And it already feels demoralizing to me. Just like, man, there's so many skills you have to learn if I want to like approach this from a really high level. Um, cool. Okay, so much harder work at 2x2 for sure. And it shows clearly. I'm trying to think if there's other things we should talk about. I have a few other questions about like about your mindset with nerves. Um, do you have anything you want to say on well, two things. One of them is on nerves and the other one is on breaking records. To my knowledge, you've never held a world record. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So talk to me about that for a second. Because like you have an unbelievable amount of skill in 2x2 and have had an unbelievable amount of skill for an insanely long time and two world championship podiums and a world championship title and no
Yeah.
like, world record. Does that bother you? Is it kind of okay?
Um. So it had always been my top goal, and I think at some point it became an obsession where I really wanted it. I really put getting a world record on a pedestal. And I think that just put a lot of pressure on me. I think I've I think a statistic that you're not going to find on WCA, but I think is factual, is I have the most world record BPAs without ever getting a world record. And this is not just 2x2, this is across all events. I think I've had like 8 or 9 instances where if that solve was good, I could have locked world record. And it's been tough sometimes, and now I'm at a point where I can be very content looking back on my cubing career with everything I've accomplished. And I think if I were to get world record tomorrow, I don't think my life would not change. Like,
Yeah.
uh, if I get world record tomorrow on Monday, I still go to work, and in the evening, I still go to the gym. Um, so it's bothered me at times, but I'm at peace with it because the lessons I've learned with all the other accomplishments, which have been major lessons, those are worth so much. And yeah, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I think
Yeah.
that pretty much covers it well.
Did
I
you
mean,
did you As you were practicing, as you were grinding, did you enjoy it? Or were there points where you were practicing for the sake of the ranking or for the sake of the record and you stopped having fun with cubing? Like, was your relationship with cubing always good?
It was not always good. I was always very competitive, really wanted to stay on top, and I would enjoy the getting the good results, which, I mean, thankfully, I have been able to enjoy some of those moments. And no, it was not always fun, but I think in any top level competition, you're not always gonna have fun, and sometimes you're gonna have to put in the dirty work when you're not feeling like it.
Hmm.
But I would have never gotten to this point if I didn't have fun with it at all at any point.
Oh, for sure. Do you regret any of the practice you did? Like, do you regret not practicing more, or do you regret practicing too much? Or is it a mentality thing? Or do you just look back happy? Because, like, something's off, right?
Uh,
There's no world record. So either you wish you practiced more or you wish you practiced less.
um, no, I have no regrets. I'm happy with the way it is, and as I said, I mean, I think right now I'm mature enough to look back and say if I'd gotten a world record, it wouldn't have made me like a different person today. It
Hmm.
wouldn't have
Yep.
made a big difference. Probably 6 years ago, I made it a huge deal where I was like, "I need to get a world record someday." Um, and maybe that has been also maybe not getting a world record has been a very good lesson as well, to not really put anything on a pedestal. Um, but all the other practice I've done, I've achieved other things within cubing within 2 by 2, which I've enjoyed, like, so much, and some of the most meaningful moments in my life have been, related to, working a year towards a certain goal and then accomplishing it, and then it's just, uh, a huge explosion of emotions, which
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Those high points are insane, especially with
yes.
the amount of sweat and tears you put into two by two.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we're wrapping up here in a second. But I have one last question for you. First, do you have anything that you wanted to talk to me about? This has been me driving this whole thing and it's been an hour.
I was very curious about, what your next challenge is gonna be because you're not gonna continue with ZB, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you realized algorithm learning is not for you, or that's just not the thing that you enjoy the most.
Yeah.
So, maybe I can persuade you in, really learning a lot of algorithms in 2 by 2.
Yeah, so I am not sure about the answer to that question because I very strongly dislike learning algorithms. I have your 2 by 2 course and I love it. We'll promote that in a second because it's an incredible resource. It's so good. Um but I don't I kind of hate algorithms. um
Okay,
I've tried so many times. Like, I should learn 2 by 2. Nope, I hate this process. Nope, I still hate this. Like, so I've had this experience a few times in my life, like with music. My mom made me do piano lessons from when I was a 4-year-old until I finished high school. I took 14 years of piano and I did competitions in Southern California for it. I was never that good, but I did a few. And I hated it. Like, I don't use that word lightly. I hated piano. Um and in college, 3 years into college, I was like, maybe I was just being a brat. Like, maybe I actually would like piano if I tried it. So I went and I signed myself up for lessons at college, and I still hated it. And I was like, yep, I still hate piano. It wasn't just me at the time. And I've had that experience with algs where it's like, maybe, nope. Well, maybe, nope, I still hate it. Nope, still hate it. And so at this point, I'm kind of just accepted that I don't think learning a giant alg set is the best way for me to go. So now I'm wrestling through that just with like competing at a high level in general because I'm realizing that the things that I'm the best at tend to be at absorbing ideas, explaining ideas, and motivating other people, not so much doing it myself. Like, I've been at like 10-ish seconds plus or minus for 5 months now on 3x3. And I've been practicing for 2 to 3 hours a day, tracking all of it, getting coaching sessions, doing it intentionally. And I've coached other people in this time from 11 to 9 seconds or from 10:5 to 8. And it's like, wait a second. If I can help other people do this in less practice hours per day than me, am I on the right path? So I don't know what the next thing is for me. I'm trying to understand that myself right now.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Can I give you and your audience one practice technique for 3x3 that I think will get you a whole way, even though it feels like super simple?
Yeah, go for it.
Uh, One practice technique that I think will instantly improve your look ahead is take a cube, scramble it, and then start solving it. And the turning speed should be a turning speed where you should have no lockups and no pauses at all. So you're going to start the solve literally turning like this. And then at some point after you finish a solve, like flawlessly, you're going to be like, oh, that was like super slow. And then you're going to speed it up a little bit and a little bit. But the second you have a lockup or you have a pause, then you start over and go all the way back to the first turning speed. And this will really improve your turning accuracy and your look ahead. And I've seen people go from more or less your speed to like low 8 in a year, pretty much just practicing this. So that's a recommendation I'll
Yeah.
drop here for you and
Oh,
your
I
viewers.
already do that. Hope is not lost on me being able to improve, but I don't know if I have what it takes to get to like the ultimate highest level, with the skill level of the people in the top 50 on 3x3. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm still trying to decide. Um,
Okay.
I'm quite sure that one of my things that I want to keep doing is podcasts like this and videos like this, because like you said, cubing needs somebody who can both understand the deep stuff and explain it to people. Um, like JPerm wanted to do this, I think, but JPerm ended up being like a lot of the information he gave was somewhat watered down. And I'm like a cuber before I am a teacher. Like I want I enjoy talking to people like you who have like spent thousands of hours honing the craft of this one little thing. Um, so I'm sure that'll be part of my future, but I don't know what the next challenge is, honestly, man. I like big cubes. Big cubes are fun.
That's good. Maybe we should get Kevin Hayes on the next podcast.
Oh, he already said he's coming.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. Episode or two from now.
That's
Like I think
sick.
the one after you, I've got Kevin.
That's sick.
Yeah, Felix too.
That's sick.
Felix said he would come on.
That's awesome. You're balling. Good for you. No,
Yeah,
like
raking in the dough.
this. I think, yeah. I mean, as I said to you at the start of our call, I think this is the type of content that we're really missing, and I think it's awesome that you're doing this. I think speedcubing podcasts is something that many people have tried to start up, and in the past, not many people have really been consistent with it, or the quality has not always been great. Um, and now it's you, I think Dylan and
Dylan and
who's
Chris do it.
Dylan
Yeah,
doing it? Yeah, Dylan and Chris have a podcast, and there's some other people doing it, and I just love this new wave of things, and you and the rest of them are doing a good job. So yeah, keep it up, because I'm really liking this new type of content that we're getting.
cool. Glad to hear it. So I guess a couple other things before we wrap up. Take a second and plug your course because it's so good. He did not pay me to do this, guys. The Cubicle does not pay me to do this. I got the course. I am insanely impressed with it. The amount of stuff that's in that course, it's crazy. Like there's stuff on everything from like nerves to algs, execution for bazillions of 2x2 algorithms, how to memorize, how to learn, high level, super micro. Like you can talk about it, but I wholeheartedly endorse it. And if you are even remotely interested in 2x2, go get his course. Now you can talk about it.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So for me, the most important thing that I like to say about the course is the course was a way for me to share everything that I've learned over the past over 10 years of doing 2 by 2 and all the experience I've gained, while doing that in terms of, actual things I learned and also competing, at the highest stage for 10 years. Um, I think it's a source where you can really find anything about 2 by 2 you need. As you mentioned yourself, Brandon, algorithms, look ahead, one looking, nerves, practice drills, whatever you like. And I don't know, I've had a lot of people just being super happy with what they could learn, and that's been the most important thing for me, and that's been great. So if you are looking forward to learning a lot of things in a very, in a good environment, which is cubing.gg, where there's other very good courses as well. Yeah, I would recommend my own course. I think it's the most centralized place for 2 by 2 knowledge that you'll find.
Cool. Any final questions from you? I have one last question for you before we end.
I have no further questions from my end.
Sweet. Okay. Well, what aspect of cubing gives you the deepest joy?
Oh, I love this question. I really do. And this is something that's changed throughout the years. And right now, I know that how I feel about this now is not going to change, and it's without a doubt, it's the connections that I've made throughout these years. Some of my best friends I've met through cubing. Um, People I've coached, parents, kids, people that have seen me grow up. Incredible memories. Um, that's been my favorite part about cubing. And in 20, 30, 40 years from now, I will not think about that one solving comp where my look ahead was amazing
Yeah.
or that average of 5 I got at home. I will think about the amazing people that I met and the impact I've been able to have on people's lives and the impact other people have had on mine, that have shaped me to the person I am today. And I'm eternally grateful for all those people, for being part of what has been my story. So and what will be for many years. So that's without a doubt the single most important thing that cubing has brought to me and my favorite aspect of cubing.